Hey, what's up guys, it's Caleb here, and as you might know, I have one of the coolest jobs in the world. I get to build really cool things with software, but some of you might not know how I got into tech. And let's be real, you probably don't care. But what you probably do care about is, one, how do I break into tech myself? What type of money and opportunities are there for me? And lastly, do I need a code to break into tech? So what I want to do in today's video is break down all of the potential jobs and avenues you could take if you want to break into the tech industry. Because the way I look at it, the opportunity, the money is out there, but ain't nobody capitalizing. We need more people in the field to take advantage of it and get that bag. So by the end of this video, one thing I'm going to do is explain all the roles, but also tell you which role takes probably the least amount of effort to get into, but can yield the highest return on investment. I'm talking 100, 200, 300K salary. Let's get into it. So it's probably not what you think. I have to be honest with you. When people think tech, they're usually thinking of one or two things. They're either thinking big tech like Meta and Apple and Amazon, Netflix, Google, Tesla, AI. That is a very small, highly visible, highly competitive part of the tech industry. But that's not the complete landscape. Tech is really everywhere. You know, if you think about it, it's the mom and pop shops. It's your grandma hitting you up who needs IT support. If you're watching this video, it's like you hitting the like button and making sure you subscribe to stay tuned for more content. What I love about tech is it's an opportunity and it has a very, very wide net, but it really depends on your mentality and understanding what are your options, because you hear me say on the channel all the time, you can break into tech without having to be in tech. What I mean by that is you don't need to work at FANG. You don't need to work at Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, or any of those big tech companies. You don't need to work in AI or Tesla or robotics. There's a lot of jobs that you can pursue in tech. And what I'm going to do next is break down some of the more common jobs, what it's like doing a job, and what are the skills required to do it, and see maybe it's a fit for you. Let's dive in. So let's talk about roles for a moment. Let's start with the first one, software development. Now, you probably heard me talk about software development in the past, which is, it's one of the harder tech positions. I'm not gonna lie, but it's super rewarding. This is one of the most well-known paths, and you guys know what they do. Developers, they build apps, websites, systems we use every day. Now, key roles, there's front-end developers, back-end developers, full-stack developers. There's actually a very long list, but like those are the three that come to mind. And in terms of skill, you're gonna need to know how to code. You're gonna need to know a programming language. You really need problem solving and system architecture. There's a lot more we can dive into, but like those are the core competencies. But that is just one job. And you guys seen the boot camps. There's so many videos. You don't need to go through hundreds of hours of leak code or algo expert. You don't need to learn system design and architecture to break into tech. You can, but it's not the only one. There's also what's known as user experience designers or UX designers. Now, UX roles, they're really for the creatives out there. These jobs focus on designing intuitive, user-friendly products. So if you think of a UX designer, they're really responsible for researching users' needs and crafting a smooth experience. Let me give you a real life example. I just got the new iPhone 16, and going from a 14 to a 16, I had to transfer all my information. Apple has a dedicated UX team to make sure, like, hey, let's think about how do we make this as easy, as seamless as possible? Because one, when you do consider the experience, it does usually yield to more money, more people spending money on your product. Because imagine if buying a new iPhone was such a pain going from one to another that you always had to go to like Verizon or AT&T. People over time would be like, forget this. So experiences for the user is critical. And then there's the UI designer. They're really more focused on how the products look, the color, typography, fonts. Either way, very important, because when you think of the skills needed, we need empathy, design thinking. And then in terms of tools, they're kind of always changing. Right now, Figma is hot. So I would say stay tuned for our Figma 1 hour breakdown. But Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD, anything that you can do to design something, it's going to be helpful. But if you enjoy being creative, problem solving, designing how people interact with products, this could be a great role for you. Maybe you don't like designing though. Maybe you want to do something different. So then there's also quality assurance testing or quality assurance engineers. Now, if you don't know what a QA engineer does, go check out this video I've done and come back, because QA roles, they're really ensuring that software works as intended before it reaches the final user. So you don't need to write code for this job initially, but you do need to think like a user. And users we're people. People are complicated. We do dumb things. And a QA tester, they're responsible for finding bugs and ensuring the product functions correctly. And what I like about QA engineering is you can start off as a manual tester where you're like mouse, keyboard testing things, but then you can move into automation then you start learning how to code a bit. But instead of building something from scratch, the thing already exists. You're now just trying to write tests to go against that. So automation testers, they use tools to create automated tests, and they can be like Selenium, Cypress, Playwright, kind of the new kid on the block. And in terms of skills needed, you do need a good attention to detail. You need to be an analytical thinker. And you do need to be familiar, if you want to get an automation piece, with at least one of those tools I mentioned. This is a great role for those who are detail oriented and really trying to break things and pushing things to the limit, because you're really trying to help the quality of a product. And then there's product management. Now, product managers, they're like the mastermind behind a product, or like think of them as the director. Like they have the vision of a product. They don't code, they don't design, but they do lead development products from idea to launch, and they work closely with developers, designers, and stakeholders. So product managers, they work to understand customer needs, define product features, and really like figure out priority too. Like, do we need to get this feature before that feature, etc. Now, in terms of skills needed, you need to be a good communicator. I would say you need to have like a business mind. You need to be strategic thinking. You definitely need to have some leadership skills, because again, you kind of rallying the troops to make something happen. And if you enjoy leading teams, balancing priorities, turning ideas into reality, you kind of have that entrepreneurial spirit, I would say product manager is really one of the best ones to pursue, because in terms of like barrier of entry, it's much lower compared to a lot of other ones. Now, a lot of tech people will tell you they worked with bad product people and it sucks. But when you work with a great product person, it can make everybody else's lives so much easier. So product management, great role for those who are a little bit more business savvy, business minded. But let's say you're not the visionary type. Then there's project managers, or project management, or scrum masters. The names are interchangeable, to be honest with you. But in tech, projects are often run in teams using frameworks like Agile, Kanban, sometimes Waterfall. Sometimes it's a mix of things and they call it one thing and it's just really a mess. Regardless of that, let's just call it Scrum Master for the rest of the video. But Scrum Masters, they really help the team stay on track. They're really focused on the execution of things. So Scrum Master, they're going to oversee the Agile process. They're going to remove roadblocks. They're going to ensure the team is collaborating effectively. And what I've really seen is they're kind of like the mom and dad of the project. Like, hey, are people doing what they're supposed to be doing? You know, people sometimes are out. Hey, if that person's out, does somebody pick it up? They're just doing everything in their power to keep things moving. There's a lot of memes and videos making fun of Scrum Masters, but it's a lot harder to do a project when you don't have one, especially if the project is large. Now, skills required to be a Scrum Master: you do need to be organized, you need to be effective. Communication is like universal, but like you do need to be an effective communicator as a project manager, because you're usually passing that information back up to stakeholders, senior leadership, executives, things of that nature. So you also need to be familiar with these frameworks, whether it's Agile, Scrum, Waterfall, what have you. But if you're a highly organized individual, if you like coordination, if you kind of like the helping keep things organized, I've seen some really great project managers, and then there's some project managers where it seems like they just kind of run stand up and go home. But the reality is, like, a good project manager can help keep a project moving and staying on track. But those are all roles that are a little bit more tied into building something. Let's talk about customer support, or I like to call it customer success. Now, tech companies, they need strong customer support teams to help ensure users navigate and solve problems with products. It's a people-focused role, so it doesn't require deep technical skill, but it's essential for keeping users happy. Like, remember the last time you've had a problem with something? Let's say like you had a problem with Verizon. First thing I'm going to do is hit up the chat and be like, yo, WTF, help me. And that person, I'm expecting them to respond, be polite, and help me with my problem. So customer support specialists, they assist users with troubleshooting and really addressing any questions regarding their project. And they're ensuring customers are using the product effectively. So this is where you hear people talk about a customer success manager. So let's say you're a big time client and hey, we just bought this new SaaS software and we're going to incorporate it into our business. Well, a lot of businesses might, hey, we're paid to 10 to 100K to buy the software for our whole company. But then you want to make sure like, hey, how's it going? Do you need help? Do you have questions? Like, it's better to be more proactive. So that's where these success managers have really come in place the last few years. Skills needed. Communication, as always, but this is probably the one where communication is really critical because it is like the main part of the job. Problem solving, and to the extent that you need to be able to understand the customer's pain points and figure out, can I solve it, or do I need to trickle this down to the developer, to the product manager, to the project manager, etc. Great role, expanding, a lot of opportunity, and I've seen people get into customer success and move into product management, or they start in customer success and move into QA, or they go into Scrum Master, or some even become developers. They're like, actually, I finished my boot camp, it wasn't that hard. So it's a great jumping off point and it pays decently well. But let's say you're a little bit more scientific, math side of you have the math side of your brain going. Then we gotta talk about data and analytic type roles, because data at this point, it's like the heart of modern tech. Everybody's talking AI, and when they say AI, they're really just saying data in another way. So whether it's to improve the customer experience, make better decisions, make data-driven decisions, it's not all heavy coding, but it is looking at a lot of numbers and making sense of those numbers. You can be a data analyst where I can give you like a very large, let's say, spreadsheet, and you have to organize a spreadsheet. Or you can be a business intelligence analyst, where you can take data and actually make some business informed decisions off of that data. Does it make sense to invest more in Q2? Does it make more sense to put more people on a project? Should we run this type of test versus that type of test? You know, data just helps you make decisions in a more informed manner. And then there's data engineers, a bit more technical, but sometimes you need people to build and maintain infrastructure needed to kind of keep the data generation and pipeline moving and flowing smoothly. Now, in terms of skill, this is really the analytical mind, the people who like Excel, SQL, spreadsheets. But if you enjoy working with numbers, visualizing data, creating graphs, this could be your type of role. And like I said, with the AI revolution, everybody's talking about data now. So we talked about the jobs. Let's just answer one simple question. Why tech? Why should you even get into tech, to be honest with you? Well, I got 6 bullet points for you. Let's just go through them. High paying jobs. The average salary of a tech professional is 100K. If you do it for 5+ years, I guarantee you could get to 200K or more easily. It's one of the few industries and roles that has complete flexibility. You can be fully remote, and we're gonna dive into that a bit later, but just the flexibility, it's amazing. And number 3, there's really like some excitement regarding tech, because you ever notice every 5 to 10 years something happens? Right now we're in this whole AI revolution. A few years ago it was crypto and Bitcoin. A few years before that it was, hey, did you download or build an app? Before that it was the .com. Like, there's always just something new that kind of happens, and every time something happens, I kind of look at it like it's an opportunity to hop on a train and maybe take advantage of it. If you're like me and you're a parent, tech roles usually have pretty good job security, good benefits, and those things are nice if you have a family. Number 5, I would say innovation is really key in the tech field, because you could be part of the next big thing. You like, imagine like working on the OpenAI team before they became ChatGPT and OpenAI. Like, you could be on the rise of something, or you can just simply be critical to the success of a business, because like I said earlier, most businesses need a website, they need an app, they need data, they need support. People are trying to get into AI, but they need people to understand AI to get into it. That could be you. And lastly, flexibility. Like I said, you can work from home, a cafe, a beach in Bali. I mean, just watch out for the sand in your laptop. But I mean, reality is, like, it's one of the few jobs you don't need a PhD. You don't need to go to 10 to 20 years of school, and you can really do whatever you want, wherever you want, as long as you're getting your work done. Now, it depends on where you work, of course, but it's one of the few jobs where like you don't need to be in the office to be effective. So like there are many faces when it comes to tech. Now, one thing no one told me, but it will happen to you, is you will develop tech skills in your role, but also in your industry. So for example, I know how to code, but I work in media. So I had to learn about media, but my previous role was finance and insurance. So some people, they double down and they take advantage of that. So meaning, hey, if I work at Facebook and I go to Twitter and I go to Snapchat, over time, not only do I know how to code, I start understanding how social media companies work. And some people don't get that chance because we apply and we just hope whoever calls us back gives us an interview and we land that interview. So a lot of that could be out of our control. My advice to you is this. Master the skills of your job. You're a QA person, get good at QA. You're a product, get good at product. Coding. But once you get good at your job, and once you've done it for a little bit, let's say 2, 3, 5 years, start looking at the industry that you're in and start figuring out, where am I gaining expertise? And some people can use that to their advantage. Like I said, with social media, if I worked at 3 social media companies, then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do my own. It has a lot more value if I say X Facebook, X Twitter, X Snapchat. Caleb King trying to do his own social media company. You're like, well, he knows how to code and he's worked at social media companies. He probably knows something. Doesn't mean you can't go that route if you don't work at those companies. But I just wish somebody would have told me, one of the few things that I like about tech is you can develop 2 skill sets, the industry knowledge and the tech knowledge. So let's talk about the skills that pay the bills, right? Without the tax. Breaking into tech doesn't require a PhD in computer science. Wouldn't hurt though, but it's not required. It's not like being a doctor. It's not like being a lawyer. Most people are going to tell you need to learn programming to get into tech. I don't like telling people that because, as we just covered, there's so many roles in tech that you don't need to know how to code. And what you really need are 2 things. You need to learn how to learn. Meaning if I saying, hey, I want you to learn everything about AI and data science, you need to be able to create your own curriculum and find resources and gather it together and like keeping yourself accountable. I need to learn these things to get good at this. So you need to learn how to learn. And number 2, you need to know how to be a team player. The days of like, I'm a superstar IT pro and I can be an asshole to everybody else are gone. You need to have people skills. Those are really the 2 things. And then you just need to be determined. That'd be the last thing. Like if you want to do it, just gotta put your mind into it. But like I said earlier, you might be curious on like, Caleb, what's like the one role that I can break into, the easiest one to break into and like has the potential highest ROI? If you didn't catch it, it's product management. And here's why I say product management. Unlike being a doctor, unlike being a lawyer, unlike being an accountant, you don't need to go to school to learn it. And I've actually seen people go from a customer success manager where they're talking to customers, hearing their pain points, hearing what they're complaining about every day, in and out. And those people, not only are they on the ground hearing the customers, most of us are creative. Most of us are thinking, hey, you know what? It would be nice if we started doing this. Product management these days is fairly new, but it's really like the master facilitator. Like I said earlier, they're working with developers and designers and stakeholders. Stakeholders could be, the executive branch of the company, could be, a board. But like when you think of like product, you're really thinking of how can I innovate to help drive business to this company? And if you can come up with an idea that makes the company a lot of money, well, that works out for you very, very well. So in terms of like barrier of entry, you don't need master's or PhD. I've seen people who have none of that and get into product management. And when I say the sky's the limit, like think about it. Good product managers nowadays, like they're running their own tech companies. They don't know how to code, but they understand how to take an idea and turn it into reality. The ultimate product manager is Steve Jobs. He didn't know, he wasn't super techie. Like we already know that story, but he had a vision and he was able to execute that vision. Now, he wasn't a product manager per se, he was CEO, but if you think of like what he was doing and what he was good at, it's the definition of a product manager. And let's wrap up this video, guys, because I probably want you to know how I would get started. Knowing everything all the different positions out there. Well, here's what I would do. 1, research more on the positions I highlighted, but then choose a direction. Do you want to be a web dev? Do you want to be a mobile dev? Do you want to be a product manager? Do you want to go into project management? Pick your poison. Then learn the basics of that role. Free Code Camp, professional.dev, this YouTube channel, YouTube in general. There's so much content out there. Start understanding what is required for each of the roles and start filling in the gaps. What do you know? What don't you know? You know, you can look at online courses. You don't need to do a boot camp. I look at boot camp kind of like a personal trainer. Some people don't need a trainer. They just need to get their butt in gear. Some people need somebody to hold their hand and keep them accountable. You just need to understand who you are as a person and figure out which one is best for you. But for a lot of the roles, there aren't boot camps for customer success or QAs. You just need good old-fashioned books and you putting hands on keyboards and trying it out yourself. I would say build projects and build them in public. Set up a GitHub. You know, nothing says hire me more than like look at the things I've actually built. And then you can actually go from a consumer to a creator and speak to that in interviews. I value that way more than somebody showing me this fancy resume of 10, 15 years. People will say network. I said it already. Build in public. And all that means is putting it on Twitter, putting it on social media, doing a blog or a newsletter. Just finding a way to show people, hey, I'm doing a thing. Check out the thing I'm doing. And then lastly, to break into tech, guys, you have to apply. Apply. Don't discourage. You know, I'll do a video kind of helping people how I would go about applying, but just remember, every no is really just a yes in disguise down the road. And there you have it. That's what I would do if you want to break into tech. Now, I know some of you are curious about product management because, like you said, like I said earlier, the barrier of entry is very low and the ROI super high. So if you want to learn more about what product managers actually do, check out this video here. Tech out.